Before we begin, there will be spoilers for the 1000-Year Blood War arc of Bleach in the video to come. One of the biggest, most enduring mysteries in Bleach is that of Yoruichi's cat transformation. No, not that one, although that does play into it somewhat, and we'll get into that one a little bit later. Here I'm talking about Yoruichi's simple black cat form, the very form she's first introduced to us in right at the start of the series. Eventually, this form is hand-waved away. Once Yoruichi reveals her true self to Ichigo, we never see it again. Not only that, but it's only ever mentioned once more in an off-the-cuff remark by Yoruichi in the 1000-Year Blood War arc, and no explanation is ever given as to how she can perform this trick. What's so strange about this form is that even in the world of Bleach, a world full of magic and powerful special abilities, a transformation like this is unprecedented. A Shinigami completely transforming into an animal at will is unheard of. No other Shinigami in the history of Bleach that we've ever seen has ever been able to produce anything close to this. There's always been a lot of speculation around it. Is it Kido based? Is it something only Yoruichi can do? And if so, why? Does it have something to do with the Kido and their need for stealth? Or is it something else entirely? And furthermore, how does it tie into that new form she reveals at the end of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, if at all? Well, it seems like Kubo is finally ready to start talking, albeit just a tiny little bit. But that tiny little bit was enough to inspire me to finally make this speculative discussion video. And so in this video, we're going to take a look at Kubo's most recent comment on the matter, given to us as part of his Klub Outside Q&A, and then have a brief speculative discussion on the transformation itself, as well as some of Yoruichi's character. Before we get started on the video, guys, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure to do that now for more Bleach content like this every single week. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up as well to help support me and the channel. And if you want to take that support for me another step further, I do also have a Patreon as well. And as always, I want to say a massive shout out and give a huge thank you to everyone supporting me over there on Patreon, because I really do appreciate each and every one of you. And yeah, as mentioned earlier at the start of this video, there will be spoilers for the 1000-Year Blood War arc of Bleach in the video ahead. So I don't normally do videos examining every little answer that Kubo gives over there on the Klub Outside Q&A, but this is, like I said, something fans have been wondering about for quite some time. And so in one of the very most recent installments of that Klub Outside Q&A, he was asked the following question by a fan, which I am paraphrasing slightly as the translation was a little bit wonky. But the question goes as follows. I would like to know about Yoruichi's transformation into a black cat. Is it some kind of Bakudo technique? It doesn't appear to be a Kido or Bakudo. Or is it something from the Kido, or is it a technique from Kisuke? And Kubo's answer, in very typical Kubo fashion for the most part, is quite short, quite to the point, but his answer is as follows. In the Shihoin bloodline, from time to time, they can change into the appearance of a beast. And although Kubo's answer is unfortunately very slim pickings, it's still more than we've really ever heard on this feline form before, and it gives us a great excuse to finally look at this transformation of Yoruichi's, the question of its very existence, and speculate on it. So Yoruichi's feline transformation isn't Kido, it isn't anything to do with the Kido, and it isn't anything to do with Kisuke. Instead, it's a hereditary transformation passed down the Shihoin bloodline, presumably originating thousands of years ago. This in itself is fascinating, and while it still doesn't tell us the origin of the transformation or why the Shihoin family in particular have access to this very strange power, the likes of which no other Shinigami has, it's probably the most interesting outcome Kubo could have come up with all the same. When Yoruichi uses this transformation, it seems to be very all-encompassing. Not only does it provide her with the perfect disguise, even changing the tone of her voice to sound male, but she's able to remain in this form seemingly indefinitely, spending a large chunk of both the Agent of the Shinigami arc and the Soul Society arc as a cat. We have no idea how this affects her reiatsu or anything like that, outside of the fact that she presumably doesn't get any training while she's in this form, and so if she spends too long in it, might be a little rusty when she reverts back to her human self. But presumably, Yoruichi has had access to this form for hundreds of years, as in Turn Back the Pendulum, Byakuya calls her a werecat or devil cat, implying he knows of her ability to transform even 100 years ago, and it's likely that Yoruichi utilised this form during her exile to remain undetected, even reappearing to Kisuke in it after an absence of some time. And so it's possible that even 100 years ago this form of hers was common knowledge, at the very least among the nobility and the higher-ups of Soul Society. But you know, what interests me the most about this is how cat-like in nature Yoruichi is herself, making me wonder if her ability to transform into a cat informs her very personality and even appearance to some degree, or if it's the other way around. For example, the Shihoin clan is easily recognisable thanks to their luxurious glittering gold eyes, which seem to be well suited to a cat and maybe even cat-like in nature. The same goes for their emphasis on hand-to-hand combat, making them all very nimble and very spry, again, like a cat. I guess what I'm wondering is, how intrinsically tied to her very being is the ability to transform into a cat? Is she really Yoruichi without it? As we'll see later on in the 1000-Year Blood War arc, it seems to be deeply mixed into her very power itself. In different cultures, cats represent different things that also seem to relate well to Yoruichi and her wider family too. Cats symbolise intelligence, cunning, independence, and grace, all aspects that may as well be completely defining Yoruichi, as well as stealth and silence. If the entire Shihoin clan can transform into cats, then it seems as though they were destined to command the Omnit's Kiddo from the start. Yoruichi in particular seems to reference the Bakaneko, a yokai in Japanese folklore whose form and abilities, again, essentially describe Yoruichi to a T. The Bakaneko or cat monster is a shapeshifter that can walk on two legs and even talk. Does that remind you of anyone? What this all comes down to is the question of how important is this form to Yoruichi, and would she even be herself without it? No other Shinigami has been shown to have such a form, and certainly not one that is seemingly so crucial. It's almost like an alter ego that slumbers within, certain elements of which are then reflected upon the surface. Which I think leads us nicely into the 1000-Year Blood War arc. After spending a large portion of the Soul Society arc in her feline form, Yoruichi reverts back to her original self, and we never see that form again. That being said, it is mentioned in the 1000-Year Blood War arc when Yoruichi says to Orihime that she can still become a cat should she want to. And then later, when Ichigo and his friends imagine what a relative of Yoruichi's might look like, they all comedically, collectively imagine a cat in a Shinigami's robes. But as I'm sure you all know, what we're really here to talk about is Yoruichi's final form, a transformation that's forced upon her by Kisuke, though it's implied she can transform into it at will as well, in order to battle Sternritter D. Askin Naklavar, Shunko Raijin Senkei Shunryo Kokubyo Senki. This form, seemingly only accessible once Yoruichi has already engaged her Shunko Raijin Senkei state, at least based on the name anyway, quite literally turns Yoruichi into an electric cat girl, seemingly reversing the state of her original feline transformation. And what I mean by that is there she physically became a cat but kept her mind intact, whereas here it is the total opposite. She mostly keeps her humanoid physical form, save for fangs, a tail, claws and paws, and upturned tufts of hair in the shape of ears, but her mind devolves into that of a feral cat's. And if I'm honest, this is where things get really weird and complicated for me when trying to understand the bigger picture of Yoruichi's cat forms. Shunko isn't a special hereditary technique, it's an ability all Shinigami can seemingly learn if capable, a mixture of Hakuda and Kido that allows Shinigami who specialise in hand-to-hand combat to bolster their attacks with powerful elemental Reiatsu. And the only thing that seems to be unique to the individual Shinigami is what element that Reiatsu takes the form of. Meanwhile, we now know that Yoruichi's cat form is innate to the Shihoin family, yet to achieve this new form, she somehow has to seemingly mix the two, and can only reach this state via Shunko in the first place, which would seemingly only make sense if Shunko was something special and inherent to her and her bloodline's techniques, that meant it was intrinsically tied to that cat transformation, but we know it isn't. Anyway, here Yoruichi becomes completely cat-like in personality and demeanour, going so far as to lick her paws in order to clean herself, and even her spiritual pressure changes to reflect this. So what's going on? I mean, if we go back to the idea that I mostly jokingly floated initially that she has an alter ego, is something like that even possible, even credible? Is there some cat spirit living inside her soul that can manifest in different ways, be it physical or mental, essentially on Yoruichi's choosing? It sounds ridiculous, but we know basically nothing about this power whatsoever. We don't even know how Kisuke forcibly triggers it. There's just a comedic moment where he says that once he peels this sticker off some paper, she'll have transformed, and then that seems to change her. So again, no idea what the basis is surrounding the actual transformation itself. Perhaps this is a curse that has been placed on the Shihoin clan. I remember there being some theories that speculated this transformation was related to her unseen Zanpakuto, but that seems more unlikely than ever now we know it's a form passed down her bloodline. So really, I have no idea what this form is, what her original cat transformation is, or how it all ties together, hence why this is a speculation video. I kind of like the idea of the cursed Shihoin clan, as it's not the only time we've seen a cursed clan in Bleach, and actually, that's an interesting branch to explore too. Ironically, or perhaps not, the other cursed clan we've seen is also the only one to harbour a character that gets even remotely close to what Yoruichi is and can do, Seijin Komamura. Komamura's situation is quite different though. He spends his days as a walking, talking, humanoid beast man, and while he has the outward appearance of a beast, at least facially, his actual body shape is that of a human. And we learn that Komamura is from a mysterious beast clan, a lineage of sinners condemned to take the form of revenge-driven animals, only able to restore their humanity once they've sacrificed everything else in that ultimate pursuit of what drives them. This doesn't really seem akin to the Shihoin family at all, and there's probably zero connection whatsoever, but it is interesting. Maybe the Shihoin family is an early offshoot branch of the Beast Clan. Speaking of the clan itself though, I want to end by taking a wider look at the Shihoin family beyond Yoruichi. We know of 3 Shihoin family members currently in the world of Bleach: Yoruichi, her descendant and the current head of the family Yushiro, and their ancestor from the earliest Gotei 13, Chika. It's likely that all 3 of them can transform into a beast, though where Kubo mentions in his answer that they can do it from time to time, I can't help but wonder if that means it maybe skips generations, meaning there's a chance Yushiro doesn't have that power at all. That being said, Yushiro seems to retain the same feline features that Yoruichi does, like his huge round gold eyes, and of course, his lithe form. And another question is, I wonder if they all become cats, or if they take the form of various different beasts. Here's something to consider too that's starting to get quite out there, although probably no more out there than anything else we've discussed so far. But when the Hell chapter released, a lot of people speculated the character of Yu Yayahara might be the daughter of Kisuke and Yoruichi. Now, while I don't necessarily buy into that, I don't think the timeline works, to be honest, this idea of a beast transformation being passed down the bloodline maybe lends that theory some credence, since Yu Yuyu was at least shown emulating the power of a bear in hand-to-hand form during the short time we saw her in action. But like I said, I don't think I buy into that theory myself to begin with anyway. And that's kind of it for the video. Like I said, it was a brief speculative discussion on the nature, on the origin of Yoruichi's cat transformation. Both the initial black cat form that she has in the Soul Society arc, and of course the electric cat woman form that she has in the 1000-Year Blood War arc. As always, let me know your thoughts and your theories down in the comments below. I'd love to see them. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. Where do you think this form comes from? Now that we have a snippet of concrete information about it, that it's actually a hereditary bloodline transformation of the Shihoin family itself, that is interesting. It raises some interesting questions, and really just the whole thing needs some more solid answers. But I hope you enjoyed the discussion nonetheless, guys. Like I said, let me know in the comments below basically what you think about these transformations of Yoruichi. How does her electric cat girl form tie back into that initial cat-like nature of hers that seems to be innate to her very soul and yet need Shunko seemingly to activate? It's all very strange, all a little bit convoluted, and I'd just love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. So please do let me know. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't done already. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.